Hello and welcome to the Dune Minute Podcast, your place to dive deep minute by minute into the cinematic adaptation of Frank Herbert's World of Dune. I'm one of your hosts, John.
I'm Zach.
And we are joined once again by our friend Caf. How you doing, Caf?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Alrighty. Well,
really excited about today's episode.
This is the one. This is the one you came for.
I'm just rubbing my hands right.
Well, yesterday we were talking a little bit about the differences between the Harkonnens and the Atreides, and a little bit of the Sardaukar as well in terms of their military training and their discipline and all that stuff. We're going to start this episode with about 5 seconds of Sardaukar combat, which, to no one's surprise, ends very quickly because the Sardaukar are going against what I would call half-armored Atreides. They don't have their full, like, actual armor on. They only have their shields.
Atreides in pajamas are going up the stairs.
But
I'd like to throw something out just for the group.
Yeah.
It took me about 2 times typing out Sardaukar and Harkonnen forces before I just combined them into Harkudar in my notes. So
what was the combination we made last week that I hated, but you were just like, fuck it, we're doing this?
For Chani and Paul, we're going to call them Chal.
That's right. Yes.
Oh god, that's awful.
Yeah, it's not fun to say, but it certainly saves some time.
Yeah.
In my notes, it's just Sard and Hark.
Okay.
Love it.
So if you hear me referred to Harkudar forces, just know that I'm talking about Harkonnen and Sardaukar together.
So sorry, John. Mimicking last week, right? I had talked about the kind of delineation between blue and red shields, and unfortunately, Atreides are on the red side of the shield VFX this time.
Yeah, it is not looking good for them. We don't hang out with this too long though.
No, like I said, we're here for about 5-10 seconds and then we move on. But we do see that unlike the Harkonnen, the Sardaukar, like the Atreides, are also incredibly well disciplined, where they cut down the Atreides super quickly and then almost all in unison they all clean their blades and then continue, moving on. We get one last aerial shot of this, staircase and everything before we cut away. I did some counting. Granted, I'm trying to count through a screenshot that I, ran through GIMP to try and brighten up a little bit so I can see a little better.
Yeah.
But I counted, it was either 30 or 32 Atreides for all of the Harkonnen and the Sardaukar in that area.
Wow. Okay.
So
that they were very efficient then.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about some of the numbers, and if 30-ish Atreides could hold off that amount for as long as they did, that's pretty impressive. So, but yeah, we cut to being back inside the palace at this point.
Yep. Caf, you go whenever you want, man.
This is your time to unload, brother.
Yeah.
Well, so I figured we'd talk through it as a team, but yes. I think this is, and John, you're the frame by frame expert here. I think we move on to wide shots on Dr. Yue and Leto to start.
Yeah. He's kind of just like positioning Leto because he is paralyzed from whatever toxin or whatever Leto Yue shot him with, positioning to sit him against the wall so he can kind of get down to eye level with Leto as he's beginning to explain why he was a real piece of shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, we were talking a little bit about the cinematography the last couple episodes. Right, so one of Denis' power tools is scale and bird eye view shots and things like that. And I do want to mention in the in this scene and moving forward and the next few seconds of these scenes, here's another one of Denis' sort of power tools on cinematography, which is contrasting. So like he presents, throughout the movie and throughout his works, really, he loves to present sort of like a line breaking something on one half of the screen, give or take, and something on another half. And so here I love the line breaking, sort of the in focus wall with Leto and Dr. Yue, and then the blurry background of the whatever's happening in the rest of the castle. So
yeah, that corner on that wall is doing some fucking work.
yeah, just a quick comment on sort of Denis' wonderful cinematography tools that he has in his pocket.
Yeah,
for sure.
Zach, feel free to help me here. I think what I didn't take notes on is exactly the lines that were being said. But was this where Leto says why, or was that before?
So we get it. We get why here in just a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I have the whole.
Okay.
I have the whole
script
exchange. Yeah.
Okay. So just to set the scene up, Yue has moved Leto over to the wall, propped him up so he can get down at eye level. And he takes out this little box, sets it beside Leto, and then just looks at him and goes, "I'm sorry, my lord."
Yeah. "I'm sorry, my lord, but I've made a bargain with the Baron." And Leto's kind of like raspy breathing, and he can only just kind of, through his raspy breaths, just be like, "Why?"
Yeah.
Yue's response is, "I had no choice. The Harkonnens have my wife, Wana. They take her apart like a doll. I will buy her freedom, and you are the price." So we talked a little bit last week about Wana.
Yeah,
kind of. We touched on it a little bit, but
yeah, just as a recap, Wana is Yue's wife. Obviously, he just mentioned that. In kind of extended lore terms, she was a sister of the Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
And was this is all coming from the encyclopedia here, but they have a fairly lengthy, it's maybe like a full page article just on Wana.
Yeah.
And it mentions how she was being kind of groomed for the position of truthsayer. So the same thing that Muheim is.
Yeah.
So one of that group. But with the with all the events that happened with Paul and everything, the Bene Gesserit kind of said, actually, she's going to be better served going to Gedi Prime to be with the Harkonnens. So according to the encyclopedia, she was almost like set up for this. It wasn't just like a kidnapping or anything like that. It was something that like the Bene Gesserit like almost
it was in their plans. This was in the motion.
Yeah. Yes, it was part of the plan.
Bearing in mind, too, that earlier Vladimir Harkonnen himself had promised not to, soil the sanctity of the Bene Gesserit or whatever. Meanwhile, he's torturing and tearing one apart down in his, dungeons or whatever.
Yeah. And I guess this is where I come to one of my biggest grievances in the movie, and that's okay, and I understand why it was done, because this is quite lore heavy to include in what's already a long movie. It's not presented to the movie viewer, right? That what the futility of this bargain really is to a movie viewer, and it's okay in the aspect of the cinematic universe. This just appears as a plot twist of an inside job, right? Totally normal. That happens. People betray each other, all the time. This is what happened here. Is like, the doctor was the inside job that let this happen because he's trying to save his wife. You guys have touched upon, the imperial conditioning of Dr. Yue in past episodes.
In the Suk School.
From the Suk School of Medicine. I think what I want to say about this is what's not really explained in the movie is how impressive it was for Yue to hide his sort of intentions from Jessica herself, who is a Bene Gesserit, and also fly completely under the radar from Thufir Hawat.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, it's not quite understood how he managed to accomplish that. I think my understanding is that Jessica believed that Wana was dead. And anytime Yue brought up Wana, he did so in a manner of grief, to which, as Jessica felt his anguish and his emotions around this plot that's happening and everything that's going on in his head, I think she passed it off as grief for his wife. So she fully understood that even an imperially conditioned doctor of medicine is completely human in one way or another, and he's allowed to grieve for his loved one who was lost. That's on one. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, as far as like the Thufir thing was concerned, I think Thufir like maybe was almost lulled into a sense of false security because he's the Atreides doctor, so he doesn't have to look at UA nearly as hard as well.
Yeah, and his conditioning definitely was like protected him from it, and the assumption that
he could do any harm.
Yeah.
So I mean, supposedly Wana herself, because she has spent time with Yue, she's his wife after all. The speculation, and I don't know if this is in the encyclopedia, it certainly wasn't in the book, but the speculation was that she taught him how to establish a lie based in truth, which is how to fool a Bene Gesserit.
Yeah, I had that written down a little bit. That she taught him some truth saying and Bene Gesserit tricks.
Yeah, and then, but also in my headcanon, did her Bene Gesserit conditioning, did she condition Yue to love her unconditionally? Is that something she could have, witchcrafted upon him, right? And who's not to say that one conditioning can override the other? His imperial conditioning could be in conflict with his Bene Gesserit conditioning at that point.
Yeah, I don't think they explicitly do that. I mean, obviously she would have had the powers of like the voice, like she could do stuff like that. But that seems to be like short-term, immediate things.
Yeah. And if she truly loved him, she wouldn't use the voice on him, in my opinion.
Right. Right. There is there's a whole like in the books, there's a very important conversation between Jessica and Yue. It happens a lot earlier in the book. It takes place before the ornithopter ride out to the desert. In like the book timeline.
Does it take place after, I believe, the Hunter Seeker attack?
Right before, I think. Is right before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I went back and like skimmed through it today, and so to your point about Wana, like forcing or conditioning Yue into things. Yue asked a question of Jessica. He asked, "Why have you never made the Duke marry you?" And it's kind of an odd phrasing. Not why have y'all never gotten married. He's like, why have you never made this happen?
Yeah.
So possibly there is some kind of way that they can impose their will in that manner. I think that's the only reference to something like that I can think of. But it's possible. Interesting.
I think the conversation I'm referring to is after the Hunter Seeker, when Jessica demands Thufir Hawa to be in her presence.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going through sort of a list down of who could the traitor be, right? Who could the inside person be? And, she even asks Thufir, is it Dr. Hue? And he said, no, his imperial conditioning wouldn't allow him to do that. Having already talked about this, I think there's a sort of a beautiful, I would call it like juxtaposition of what we see as flaws in the Dune universe. The Dune universe really focuses on these sort of like elevated humans, right? You've got the Mentat in Thufir Hawat, and you have the sort of witchcraft in the Bene Gesserit, right? It's witchcraft based in science, but I'll call it witchcraft still. So the Bene Gesserit methods naturally lead to sort of limited reasoning, right? Because they are more focused on emotion and psychological impact. Whereas Mentat reasoning leads to a lack of emotional thinking, which in the sense effectively leads to false negatives, right? There's no way it could be this because he was conditioned.
Yeah, Mentats are purely logic.
Yeah, Mentats are purely logic, and Bene Gesserit are completely emotional. And I think, I'm not sure if Yue somehow played this line between them with intent or not, but I believe that's the only reason his plan worked out.
Yeah.
Right? He sort of hid his intentions from both one of the best computational humans there is and one of the best psychological humans there is.
Shout out Thufir Hawat.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance to take a peek at the encyclopedia, the entry on UA is pretty long. Like there's enough that we could do, and we could probably do a full hour on that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information there. When I was reading over it this morning, one thing that kind of stood out to me, and it's getting to your point, is there's this moment right now, like in the Dune universe, like in this universe, is something that is studied for thousands of years later. Like this, because this is like really the one of the big impetus of Leto 2 coming in, and
this is their 9/11.
Yeah, right. This is the fall of the House Atreides, which is a big historic event in this universe. Yeah. So UA being at the very center of it, it's gotten a lot of scrutiny from scholars in the Dune universe, like way later on. It basically, like the encyclopedia says, it basically boiled down to three theories of what happened here. It's either incompetence, insanity, or love. So those are like the three leading theories. The insanity portion was something that Duncan Idaho 11736 was something that he went through.
Soon to understand later, maybe much later.
That's part of the real weird stuff I talked about.
Yeah.
So a couple thousand years later, one of the many Duncan Idahos took up this task of trying to figure out exactly why UA did what he did. So he was kind of in the camp of, he went crazy. The Suk School of Medicine always kind of had like a disclaimer whenever they like someone graduated from that said they don't really they're not liable if the person goes insane.
Yeah, and it's important to mention that the school's trust collapsed after this incident.
Yep. So he didn't just bring down the Atreides; he brought down the reputation and trust in that school. Yeah.
A true crowd strike moment.
Yeah, it's it definitely exposed the flaw that even imperial conditioning can be broken. So how can we trust it?
So for this insanity piece, there's a couple things I want to mention here. Like, what would drive UA to do this, to betray them, because he's not supposed to. Like we've said, the part where he says they take her apart like a doll. In the books, it's mentioned that they actually send UA pieces of Wana.
Yeah, it's very mafia-like, where it's like, I'm going to send you a finger.
Yeah. So that is happening, and that in and of itself is enough to drive someone crazy, and to do all sorts of just drastic stuff. The encyclopedia mentions something that I thought was very funny, and this is definitely like extended lore. This is not in the books or anything, but they mention a fragment of a spacing guild, like basically a bill of passage from this time.
Yeah.
That lists 4 Sardaukar and a Benny, and then it gets cut off. So it's like that the 4 Sardaukar and the Benny go to Caladan about 6 or 7 months or some short amount of time before the Atreides leave for Arrakis. The thought process is that they under guard, they took Wana to Caladan and showed her to UA. And so like they saw face to face, showed her all messed up, and that was kind of like the last straw in breaking him.
Interesting.
The other school of thought is that she was abducted by the Harkonnens about 7 years prior to this, 7 or 8 years. From what we know about the Harkonnen torture methods, very unlikely that she lasted longer than a few months.
Yeah.
Alive there. So if we're to believe that there was some kind of meeting between UA and Wana a couple months before they went to Arrakis, the Benny maybe was not Benny Gesserit, but perhaps Benny Tleilax, and those face dancers that I've mentioned, like way back in the past, where they can make themselves look just like anyone. So again, that plays to the psychological fuckery Peter de Vries, and just kind of that final nail in the coffin of, okay, he's ours. We've broken him. He's doing what we asked him to do because he thinks that his wife's still alive. So I like that theory a lot.
Sure. No, I mean, that definitely makes sense. I don't want to feel free to cut this out,
Okay.
but because I am going to jump ahead in the movie, because when we see the moment when Vladimir executes Yue, when he's like, so join her, the implication is that she's been dead. Well, it's not even an implication.
Well, but at least
she's
in the movie universe, yes. In the movie universe, for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like all of this.
Yeah.
Like I like that theory. It would make sense, and yeah, like why? No way would the Harkonnens just like leave her alive for 7-8 years.
Well, I mean, we talked about Gurney's sister.
Yeah,
when they were abducted, she was dead the first day.
Yeah, yeah, very very violently.
Yeah. So yeah, when we get towards the end, I'll talk about the insanity, or sorry, the incompetence and love portions of those two things, because as fun, or maybe not fun, but as interesting as the
as fun as this moment can be,
as fun as the insanity argument is, I don't think that is what happened. It's a cool theory.
I would agree with you. I would also agree with you on that point.
Yeah,
it's a cool theory. I don't think that's what happened, but it's fun to think about.
There is one point too here that and this sort of came from researching speculation forum entries as opposed to the encyclopedia on this. It does mention, and maybe this leads to one of your two other points, but it does mention that Yue could have recognized that the Atreides were done for anyway, with or without his help to the Harkonnens. And so maybe an override to his conditioning is that I am actually helping them better this way. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Giving Leto a dignified death with a scheme to boot is in Yue's mind is a better outcome for Leto than what would normally happen to Leto had the Harkonnens laid hands on him. And so maybe there's a line of thinking here that he's not actually
it's more of a mercy.
Yeah, he's
else.
not actually violating his imperial conditioning. He's actually doing what he knows is best, given the circumstances that are beyond his control.
So that plays into the love theory here. So I'll go ahead and just read what my couple bullet points on that one.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. The condition, the medical conditioning meant that he was to be loyal to the person whose care he was assigned to. Now, that does not specifically mean Duke Leto or the Atreides. So if he made the determination in his mind, okay, the Atreides are fucked. There's nothing that we can do. And he's already kind of wrestling with this. Is my loyalty to my wife? Is my loyalty to this family? If he sees the writing on the wall saying, okay, this family is done for, then he's going to do what he can to help his wife at that point. The fact that he, this is spoilers for later on in the movie, but him helping Jessica and Paul, escape everything a little bit later is kind of evidence of saying, no, he still cared about them. He knew that this was a lost cause, and there's nothing that he could do to prevent, Leto's fate. So he gave him the tooth, which we'll talk about here in a second. He helped Paul and Jessica, as best he could, but he also did, he gave the Duke to the Baron in hopes that he would be able to at least, save his wife if that was a possibility.
Yes.
So,
Well, the tooth is tomorrow's episode.
okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I've been watching notes and watching everything, making sure that we're still staying
within the scheme of the minute.
within the confines of a single minute, and just for some context for the rest of the minute. After telling Leto that he's buying Juana's freedom and that Leto is the price, he then takes the ducal signet from Leto's hand, raises it to Leto's eyes, and says, "For Paul, I will do what I can, and you will kill a man for me." Leto's just kind of shaking his head side to side, like he doesn't want to, but he knows that he has no choice.
There's no point in arguing.
One thing I noticed too, just kind of frame peeking at this scene in the movie, Yue obviously has his tattoo on his forehead and everything. And we talked a little bit about the uniqueness of every single one of the Sook tattoos. I don't know if you remember that episode when we talked about it or not.
Its details are archived and down to like the microscopic features and all of that.
And that was a avoiding Benny Tlaylack impersonation kind of thing. But I also noticed that Yue has his own signet of the Sook as well in a ring form. So he has the tattoo, but he also has his own ring with that same Sook symbol.
I completely missed that.
Yeah.
Man, they're just giving out Jostin's rings left and right.
I guess so, man.
I will ask though, why did he have to kill Shadow? How do you think that was an? I mean, and the reason I asked is because he put everyone to sleep, right? He put the guards to sleep.
Well, he didn't put the guards to sleep. He incapacitated them with that paralyzing, toxin or whatever.
It's the same stuff he used on Leto.
I'm wondering, has he killed them or were they incapacitated so he could take the shields down?
Shadow lost a lot of blood, so I'm gonna. She was stabbed.
Yeah, she was stabbed in the chest. I think it was. She saw him doing some funky shit, and he realized that there was no option but to kill her.
There was no time. Maybe she ran at him with the knife, and he defended himself. Yeah,
could be.
It's
wrong place.
It's just a heartbreak moment for me.
to that point, though, with the Sook, training and everything, he does do harm to someone, but it's not the person that he's beholden to. So I guess that's why he's able to kill her.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that imperial conditioning is for the person you're assigned to.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep. I took her dying as a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing.
Yeah, that's probably that is 99% the explanation for her death.
Her role in the universe is done. Her fate was to hand the knife off to Jessica.
And to almost got by the Hunter Seeker.
And to save Paul.
I mean, I'm trying to see if there's any other lore stuff. I mean, the love theory is where I'm going to place most of my my stock, I guess.
I would say it's a combination of the three. Sure. I mean, it's the adage of his story, or the truth.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so I don't know.
Or it's what is it? The truth is person A's story, person B's story, and then what actually happened.
Yeah, there's one side, there's two sides, and there's the truth, or something like that. Yeah.
I don't know what the actual adage is, but you get it.
But so it's regardless. We're here. Yue has officially betrayed the Atreides, and I guess tomorrow we'll kind of see the end of this, or at least the end of this conversation with Leto.
Yeah,
beautiful end to a minute, and you will kill a man for me.
Yeah. Something that we've remarked a number of times on is that the dialogue always, or for the most part, always ends right on a minute. We don't end in the middle of sentences, and that's still holding true. And
I think we've only had maybe a small handful of 5 or 6 episodes where we're let off.
Yeah.
But yeah, we actually end the minute with Yue kind of peeking around the corner to make sure the coast is clear. And we see some figures out of focus, going back to what Kath was saying about how that wall is the focus line. We see some figures kind of moving side to side in the back hallway. So there are definitely people around inside the castle at this point. So
assuming it's Sardaukar at this point. So
yeah, I think that's safe to say.
It's either Sardaukar or Harkonnen. Someone's there. So But yeah, that's it for this minute. Bit of a longer episode, but I knew it was going to be, and I'm sure tomorrow's will also be a little on the longer side because we still have some more to talk about with UA.
Oh, yes.
But in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram at the Dune Minute. You can email duneminute@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at Dune Minute. We'll be back tomorrow for a Thursday episode, the 4th day of the week this time, to talk a little bit more about some dentistry.
All right, cool. We'll see y'all then.
See you later.